Hey, it's Andy Clark. Excited to be on the podcast today with Brian. We're going to talk about how you as a small business owner can get the whole pie, which is to say, we're going to tell you how you can use a step-by-step approach to getting more profit, impact, and enjoyment in your business.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owners Association, where real estate investors have found success since 1968. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group. This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 543. Most rental portfolios stall between $500,000 and $5 million. Not because the deals stop, they stall because the owner is still operating like a technician instead of a CEO. My guest today is Andy Clark, best-selling author of Getting the Whole Pie and creator of the Whole Pie System, which is a practical framework that helps owners build businesses that are more profitable and sustainable. With more than 2 decades advising founders, Andy focuses on the systems and operating rhythms that turn chaos into clarity. Today, we're talking about why rental portfolios hit operational ceilings and what structure actually looks like when you want your business to grow without owning you. Andy, welcome to the show.
Brian, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Why don't you tell our listeners just where you are and why you're there and how you are a real estate investor, and then we'll talk about the whole pie system.
I'm a Canadian, but about 4 years ago, my wife and I and our 4 kids decided to make a change, and we packed up and headed to Costa Rica. So I'm coming to you today from the northwest coast of Costa Rica. It's a province called Guanacaste, and I'm really happy to be here and not shoveling snow in the Canadian winters.
Costa Rica, I know there's been a lot of real estate investors investing in Costa Rica. And are you doing any investing there, or is this purely you and your family are just living there?
A bit of both. We didn't decide to move here specifically for the purposes of real estate investing, but we are up to 4 properties here now. And yeah, hopefully then there will be more. It's a nice, stable country here. The market isn't great right now. It's definitely a buyer's market right now, I guess. So it depends how you look at it. But yeah, and then we have also a couple of properties in Canada that we rent as well.
Are you happy you made that decision for your family to move down there?
Yeah, we really are. Haven't looked back. Great community here. Canadians, Americans, Europeans, South Americans, Ticos, as they're affectionately called here, which is the local Costa Rican people. Just love it. And not just because of the weather. That's a really cool place to be.
Let's talk about your book and the whole pie system. You know, you wrote this book to help business leaders, business owners kind of do business correctly. I won't say any more than that because you're going to fill us in. Give our listeners and myself kind of a background on what you're talking about when you talk about the whole pie system and what it's all about.
It starts with a recognition, Brian, that any small business, and any big business for that matter, but my area of focus is on small business, is, you know, when you think about what's a truly successful small business where, you know, the owner or founder is still involved, you know, at least to some degree on a day-to-day basis with the business. What are we trying to achieve with these small businesses? And it dawned on me about 6 years ago that it's really, there's really only 3 things. People might use different words for these 3 things. They might explain them differently, but it all comes down to profit. So the money side of the business, impact. How are you making, through your business, through your products or services, how are you making people's lives better in some way? And then enjoyment. And this is the one that often kind of gets left behind. It's like, I will enjoy my small business when this or that happens. But if we leave enjoyment to the end of the equation, we often never get there. And so when you think about a small business in terms of goals, like what are you trying to accomplish? The answer to that question will fall invariably into one of those 3 buckets. That goal is a profit goal, it's an impact goal, or it's an enjoyment goal. And so when I recognize that, I say, well, why don't we make this explicit? And why don't we build a system around achieving higher levels of profit, impact, and enjoyment in a small business?
Let's start with profit, because I want to go through all three of them, but start with profit and how that applies to real estate investors and just how you talk about it in your book, actually.
Profit, I mean, like this one's like obvious, right? It's like, it's the money side of the business. If you don't generate profit, you don't stay in business for very long. It's plain and simple. You need to make the numbers work. And as you say, real estate investing or rental property ownership, like most people that are in this industry are really good with numbers, right? Yeah. So it's like, do the numbers work? What are the numbers like? It's all about the numbers. So generally people are very good at this in this industry. You know, the audience that's listening today, you're generally pretty strong in this area. Now, operationally, can you operate your business a little bit better? You know, in terms of expenses and cash flow and, you know, people in your business, like, you know, if you have a people problem in your business, that can get expensive. And so there are things you can do in the operational side of, you know, a real estate investment business or a rental property business that can generate more profit, usually in terms of saving you money when you make difficult, let's call them, decisions that don't work out.
Give us some examples, and it doesn't necessarily have to be from the real estate world, because I know that your book is written, you know, for small businesses, but get specific about like increasing profit, what people can do.
It starts out with, what are you trying to accomplish in the first place, right? Profit, the whole kind of basis behind the whole pie system is that you can't look at profit sort of alone in a void, because you can then go down a road that perhaps will lead you to a lot of headaches and heartache and not enjoying your business to the degree that you want to. In other words, if you're not enjoying what you're doing as the business owner, and that doesn't mean every single day, but it means generally you're enjoying the process of running your business, what I've found is that really no amount of money is going to, you know, make you happy. And so to get back to your questions of what can you do to increase profitability, you have to start with balancing what are your profit goals with your impact goals and your enjoyment goals. Because if you're not doing the three of them together, one of them can get out of whack, and that's when problems can seep in.
For me to wrap my head around what you're saying would be helpful to, if you have a story or like an example of what you're talking about, because you know, I've been operating for 20 years as a real estate investor, and yeah, I enjoy it and I see the impact, but my goal is profit. And I've never thought about how do I think of them holistically, the pie there, how do I think of it holistically in order to be a better investor? So I need to wrap my head around what you're saying. Do you have any stories or examples?
In terms of specifically in the real estate investing world?
It can be real estate. It could be another type of business that you've worked with.
There's a car wash business, right, that I work with. So it's a very real estate oriented business, automatic car washes. And the owner called me one day and he said, I own 2 car washes and I just struck a deal and I'm going to buy 10 more. Going to buy 10 more car washes. I said, great. So you've gone from 2 to 12 car washes, and he needed some help. He was like, I don't know how now to run this business effectively. The profit side, like that's great. You get 10 more car washes. The top line is going to go way up. But as you know, everybody knows top line is only one part of the equation, right? And so how do you manage that growth effectively in a way that it doesn't consume you as the business owner? So there's going to be some challenges, some hard times. It's not going to be like you don't have to work hard anymore. But what we did with this car wash owner is we implemented the whole pie system into the business. And so what does that mean? What that means is that we have to go right back to start with purpose. What are you trying to accomplish with this business? Where do you want to go? How much money do you want to make? How much are you willing to work to get that? What resources do you have in terms of people and processes in place? So that's kind of where it all starts, Brian. And then over time, we've worked together to grow that business to 23 locations now, because the foundation of people, purpose, process, planning is all in place in the business. And it's a nice little foundation to then keep adding further car washes, to see that top line grow, to manage that bottom line, and then profit increases. EBITDA is how we actually talk about it in that business. But EBITDA doesn't grow at the expense of, keeping your customers happy, or at the expense of keeping you and your team happy and running the business.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. If you're thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition myself, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you live in Michigan and are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com. What's some of the resistance that you get from owners when you go through this process? Because you're hopefully pointing out things that they're not aware of. So what is it that they're not aware of as you go through the process?
And I say this lovingly, right? But like most small business owners get into business without, MBAs, they didn't go to business school. And, this my car wash clients always jokes that it took them 7 years to get out of high school. So what makes us small, in my experience, and the majority of small business owners that I work with, what makes them great, what makes them really, really great is that they're risk takers, they're action oriented, they're people, they're relationship builders. But where they tend to struggle is on the execution side. It's like they have all these great ideas, but then they kind of get bored of that great idea, and then they want to go on to another great idea. And they're good at starting and not great at finishing. And so that's really where this system comes in, is to recognize that natural DNA of a successful small business owner is not the same DNA that is required to execute and to get to the next level. Because in every small business, in that evolution, you get to a point, usually somewhere between like a million, and 5 million. You get to a point where what has gotten you that far is not going to get you to the next place. What felt light as a business suddenly feels heavy. You're really enjoying that honeymoon phase, first 2, 3, 4, 5 years of the business. You've had some success. But then it like I say, it gets heavy, and your fingers are in too many things, and you're doing things you don't want to be doing anymore. And this is where the system really helps clarify for the small business owner, what lane should you be in, and what lane should you get other people in your business to take over. In your example, the guy was the visionary. He's the one who came up with the ideas, took down the deals, but he didn't know how to execute at a more sustained level. So what's the solution to that? The whole pie system, when you implement it into your business, it's a very step-by-step structured approach. And like I say, there's if we want to get into kind of the bells and whistles of it, there's kind of two key components of the system. First is the foundation, where we talk about purpose. We do your planning. We get, your people in the right seats, that kind of Jim Collins type stuff. And then we look at your processes and optimize processes. Those are like the foundational pieces. And every small business has some cracks in their foundation. Let's put it that way. And so we shore up those cracks in the foundation, number one. And then number two, and really where the magic happens, is you implement the flywheel into the business. Again, borrowing from Jim Collins and all of his great work in terms of the flywheel concept, that's really where it's the not sexy, really sustainable things that you do every single day, every single week, every single month that drives you towards what that vision is. So drives you towards what your quarterly goals are and your annual goals and your 3-year goals and that kind of thing that we do in the planning process, right? And so what are the key parts of the flywheel? There's 4. One is clear ownership. So every key priority in the business has to have one clear owner. That could be you as the business owner, could be somebody on your team. Number 2 is you have to have the right metrics in your business. And real estate investors and rental property owners, usually pretty good, I think, at metrics, but a lot of small business owners struggle with establishing the right metrics, number 1. And then number 2, how do you actually report on them? And what do you do with that information when you have it? The third part of the flywheel is smart decisions. So when you have all this data, how can you make the smartest decisions possible with this data? How can you make, decisive decisions, not kick the can down the road, solve problems effectively? That's all part of the smart decisions, part of the flywheel. And the fourth thing is you have to have great meetings. And I know meetings can often get a bad name, but that's because they're bad meetings. Great meetings really bring it all together.
Meetings with a T or meetings with an N?
Oh, sorry, meetings with a T. And it's really all built around, you have your weekly leadership team meeting, and then you have your quarterly meetings, and you have your annual meetings. And they're very structured. The agenda is set, doesn't really move from meeting to meeting. And you know that you're hitting on only the most important aspects of your business every single week.
The flywheel that you just talked about and the 4 parts of it, that's the unsexy grind part of any business. It's the mundane stuff that has to be done, but nobody wants to, or the owner typically doesn't want to be doing it. So go back one step by step there on the flywheel and take us through like how you get the people you work with to attack and address that flywheel so that it spins properly.
Yeah. I think what's important to point out here is that this isn't typically what the business owners love to do, right? And that's why I felt it was really important to kind of systematize this thing. I'm not trying to change a business owner and to turn them something and turning them into something they're not. But when you systematize this and you implement it into the business, it becomes part of this culture of accountability. And then it actually almost disappears. It almost disappears because it's baked in to the culture. It just kind of happens because you're holding each other accountable at this point. So that's a really neat thing about this model.
How do we systematize it so it disappears? Like, because a lot of times, the things on the flywheel, the owner shouldn't be doing them anyway. And if the owner is doing it, that's probably part of the problem. So how do you then systematize it, bring in the right people and get that thing working?
The right people is a kind of a whole other discussion in terms of, and the whole PI system has a number of strategies that help with the people side of the business. But let's assume for the moment that you do have the right people, or at least mostly the right people in your business, and you're building your flywheel. So the flywheel starts with quarterly objectives. You got your quarterly objectives as a business, right? And you have clear ownership, means that one person on your team is the owner of each of these quarterly objectives. At the weekly leadership team meeting, you are checking in on the progress of each of these objectives. The owner, to your point, hopefully their name isn't on many or any of these building blocks. What I call them building blocks is key priorities. Hopefully they're not, but they're there as the air traffic controller, just making sure that things are progressing in the right direction. So once that's set, you go to right metrics, right? And you have to make sure that you are looking at all of the key levers of profitability, but not only profitability in the business. You have key levers that might drive the impact side of your business. You have key levers that might drive the enjoyment side of your business. And so you get those 8 to 12 right metrics dialed in, you're reporting on them weekly, and they're your check engine light.
Those metrics are key, but how do you know what those metrics should be? Is it just obvious, Or does it sometimes take someone like you to point them out what they need to be?
Some people are really good at it and some people struggle with it. So they can benefit from someone like me that can help take them through what are those right metrics. Where do you start? You look to what you're trying to accomplish. You look to your goals. And really what key metrics are designed to do is they're designed to tell you, are you on track to achieving those goals? And so usually for every, key initiative, goal, project, building block, whatever you want to call it, usually there's a metric that can correspond to that can tell you, are you on track or are you off track?
What else was on the flywheel?
And then you go into smart decisions. Like I said, and there's a couple components to smart decisions. Smart decisions is like, using the data that we just talked about to make informed smart decisions. There's also a component of it called values-based decision making, where you actually use your vision, your mission, your core values as a filter to run all the decisions that you're making in your business through. So a lot of what I see is that businesses will spend a lot of time hemming and hawing, running analyses on decisions that should never get that far in the first place, because they won't take you closer to your vision. They're not congruent with your vision or your core values. So a lot of time and energy can be saved if you use values-based decision-making in your business. And we have a nice little model and flow chart and that, a visual for that filter. And again, that becomes part of the DNA of your business as you're making decisions. And then the third part of smart decisions is not letting problems or issues fester in your business, which happens time and time again because it's hard to solve problems. It's easier just to propose solutions and then kick it down the road. And nothing really can sap the energy or enjoyment in a small business, really, like facing the same issue time and time again, sitting around the table, trying to figure out how to deal with it. So smart decisions is a systematic kind of way to identify what that issue is or problem, make a decision, and move on, move forward. Is it always going to be the right decision? Maybe, maybe not. But what you're doing is you're getting that issue out of the parking lot and you're taking some action to address it, whether completely or just one little bite at a time.
What's more important, to make a decision or to make a right decision?
I think it's to make a decision. But, not in a void. Using the information that you have around you to make the best decision you can with the information that's available. But if you don't have your right metrics available, if you're fuzzy on your vision, mission, core values, so you're not able to use values-based decision making, if you don't have that resolve or you haven't built that accountability culture in your business to make those hard decisions to deal with issues and problems in your business, then you're more likely to make wrong decisions.
Let's talk about impact and enjoyment, which are the I and the E in the pie. Why is impact important to this whole equation?
It's because we're human. Business owners are human beings. And as human beings, we are wired to want to do good. Most of us. And how do you do good through business? How do you do good through, selling your products and services? In this case, how do you do good through real estate investing and rental property ownership? And there's lots of ways. There's lots of ways. You might think, if you're listening to this, well, hey, I'm in this to make money, and that's great. You can do that, and there's probably some successful people out there that's the only thing that's really driving them. But if you can layer in impact on that, and you can define and clarify what that impact is, that tends to actually kind of supercharge your profitability. One of the business owners that I work with made that connection beautifully. It's just like when he really understood the impact that he was trying to make, like how specifically he was trying to make people's lives better. That was the thing that really led to more profitability in the business, because you're leaning into making people's lives better. When people's lives are getting better, they tend to want your products and services more. Maybe they're willing to pay more for it. So it's really closely tied to both enjoyment and profitability. And what comes to mind for me, Brian, as a specific example, right, is like, what kind of properties are you investing in? And that's not to say that they're good or bad properties, but like one example might be like, I want to invest in properties, low income housing properties, right? And I'm going to be able to now give people a place to live at an affordable rate that maybe they wouldn't otherwise have done. Maybe there's some government assistance that's involved there. Like that's one example that comes to mind where you can kind of really feel good about the impact you're making and also about the profitability that's coming in the door.
Let's talk about enjoyment. I mean, a lot of people, they get so sucked in their business and then they realize, you know what, I'm not enjoying this. It's a grind. It's too much work. Yeah, I'm sure you probably talked to a lot of business owners who are in that phase and asking that question, how do I can't even think about enjoyment because I'm just so busy. What does that mean? What does that signal to you?
That signals to me that somebody needs my help is what that signals to me. It's actually, I find it heartbreaking when I come across a business owner who's miserable and running their business. And, you see that when business owners put themselves last. They put their employees first, their customers first, their families first, but they put themselves last in terms of how much they're enjoying the journey with their business. And it literally makes me sad for a lot of reasons, but one of those reasons is that it doesn't have to be that way. Like there are simple things that you can do to maybe not turn yourself into a miserable business owner to like somebody who's doing, cartwheels every day on the way to work. That it's much more gradual than that. And so we just start out with like, okay, what are the roadblocks that you're experiencing right now in your enjoyment? Like you flip that equation a little bit and say, what is frustrating you in your business right now? Because if something's frustrating you, it's standing in the way of your enjoyment. What do I hear a lot of? People problems. The business depends on me. Everybody comes to me for every decision. I'm working too much. I can't go away. These types of things that, or customers or client, like if you're in a service business, you have a particular customer that's driving you crazy. And what business owners that I've worked with many times don't see on their own is that these are mostly choices that they're making. There are choices that the business owner is making to continue this frustrating pattern in their business. For example, there's an employee in your business that's not meeting your needs for whatever reason. Do you act swiftly to remove that person from your business and fill that void, or do you kick that can down the road and hope it gets better, and you don't want to have that difficult conversation, and therefore you as the business owner continue to experience the frustration in your business? That's one example. There's lots of them. But if you can identify what's frustrating you, we can build a plan together, whether it's in a day, a week, or a month, to remove that frustration. And then we can work on the next one and the next one. And gradually you'll see that enjoyment rise.
How would our listeners and viewers find out more about you or get a hold of you? And feel free to plug your book and anything else you'd like to.
Hey, come to Costa Rica and we'll hang out. But if that's not on your to-do list to get to Costa Rica, you can find me at thewholepiesystem.com. Lots of free resources and tools there that people can download. There's a thing called the Whole Pie Health Check, which will tell you kind of exactly how you're doing in 25 different best practice areas of your business to see, how are you measuring up and where are you strong, where are you weak. So that's a really cool free tool that's at the website. And then if you really want to dive deep, just pick up the book. It's called Getting the Whole Pie. Get it on Amazon. And I think you'll know right away whether it's something that resonates with you and that can help you. And then once you have got that far, you can make a choice to say, hey, I'm going to implement some of this stuff into my business. You can try it on your own, or you can reach out for help. We have some implementers that can help you work with you one-on-one or in groups to help you implement that into your business.
What's your favorite AI that you're using right now?
It's not very original. ChatGPT. I use a lot of ChatGPT, some Notebook LM also, and Opus Clip is another one. So those are three that come to mind right off the top.
Opus Clip will take YouTube video and basically cut it down to whatever size you want, 20-second clips, 30 seconds, whatever.
It's amazing. I mean, there's never been a better time to be a business owner. You have AI now that can help you as long as you use it in the right way. You can get so much more done now with fewer resources. But it's important not to forget that as the owner of that business, AI doesn't replace leadership. It doesn't replace accountability. Like, that's still on you.
Thanks, Andy, for coming on the show today to talk about your book, The Whole Pie System, and talking about, the intersection of profit, impact, enjoyment, and talking it through with us. I think, it's always good to get a perspective of someone who works with business owners of all sizes. And you've certainly given us that today. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, Brian. It's been a pleasure.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group, and you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's higinvestor.com. This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB & Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbAssociatesLLC.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.